It's great to see you. Thank you all so much for joining us here this morning. I am really thrilled to be back. Yesterday was such a great day, and so many good things that we went over yesterday that I feel like was just such a good reminder, even for me, just as somebody living with a bleeding disorder, learning just how to continue to stay on track, stay disciplined personally. And we really talked about how consistency is key, how it really is everything. You can have the best Ferrari in the garage, but if you don't use it and apply that really amazing vehicle to your life, you won't actually enjoy it. You won't reap the benefits of it. And so we are really spoiled in this country, especially that generally speaking, the majority of people do have access to regular treatment when prophylaxis is prescribed, especially preventative treatment. That's not available in every country. But it's difficult to stay on track. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get off track. It's easy to miss a dose here or there, and before you know it, you're having inflammation, you're having bleeds, you're having little things that come up here and there, and it really can cause a lot of disruption in the long term. We talked about yesterday about how an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as Ben Franklin said, and that it's really important to really schedule your priorities. I shared some insights from a book that we're reading as a team right now, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talking about how the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities, and how to really stay consistent over a long period of time to achieve long-term goals is really essential to being able to really make certain that you protect your joints when you do have access to that treatment. We talked about some ideas for how to get on prophylaxis if you've been denied for prophylaxis, documenting your bleeds, doing joint assessments, requesting pharmacokinetic data studies, reporting high-risk activities, journaling. Those things are so important to being able to make certain that you can get on a prophylaxis treatment regimen if you've been denied for a treatment regimen. Insurance is one of the biggest battles that we all face in this community, and it's critical that we learn how to overcome those things. And I really we set out some things about how to set ambitious goals yesterday, plan for interruptions, rest and recovery, how to make adjustments, how to do things in a systematic approach, and really the important piece of community in staying on track with accountability for personal accountability in context of a community. So those things are all incredibly important. And one of my favorite things about yesterday and about meetings like this, moments like this, is just the opportunity to be able to connect with each and every one of you in the chat and being able to hear so many inspiring stories. Yesterday evening, as we wrapped things up, we heard from some amazing stories from our friend Martin, and Joshua spoke up at one point just as his first event he's ever been to, which is really heartwarming comments just from everybody in the comment throughout the day, in the text and in the chat, but also just in the context of sharing their heart about how these things have gone for them, and the encouragement that the community has provided to bring support to each and every one of us. So I really want to say a big thank you to all of you for investing in these moments, for being here, for making it part of your routine and your rhythms to commit not only to attending and listening and learning for your own self-development, but also for the community connection and being able to connect with people inside of these chat conversations. Martin said it last night. He said it is there's so much going on in the chat that sometimes it's hard to keep up. So we love that, and so keep it going. It is really great to see all of your lovely faces and on the video, and also to be able to connect with you and support each other in the chat as we talk through. But today we have some really special guests for this session that we're kicking off this morning, and I'm really excited to dig into more of the personal journey of learning how to navigate a bleeding disorder and also staying on track. And so we've titled this session "Finding Out What Works," but it's really a lived experience point of view, from personal paths to prevention. And I'm excited to introduce, you may have seen on social media and YouTube some of our pre-event podcasts that we did, but It was really a lot of fun. And so this morning, I've invited those three guests to join us back here this morning, and we'll kind of introduce them one at a time. But I'll start with Ben Hicks. Ben, it is great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us for the Prophy Conference.
It is great to see you, man. I'm happy to be here for sure.
Well, I'll start off with just a small introduction and give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself. But, a lot of people know you as the community outreach coordinator at the Louisiana Hemophilia Foundation, which I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. It is going amazing. There's so many great changes happening and so many events going on. And you live this community thing day in and day out, but you don't just live it as a ideal or as a concept. You actually have lived it yourself and been dependent upon these really just the benefits of walking through a bleeding disorder and the benefits of a community that supported you through it. And so tell us a little about what you're doing these days and how you're affected by bleeding disorder.
Yes, sir. So, like you said, my name is Benjamin Hicks. I'm from Louisiana, Baton Rouge. I have hemophilia A severe. I was diagnosed when I was 11 months. My mom didn't know she was a carrier, so they thought she was abusing me. We went through that sort of thing. Finally found a doctor to diagnose me, but as soon as I got diagnosed, I got straight put on Prophy. So, and that's how I got started on prophylaxis.
That's amazing. I know that you've been through a lot, and you kind of had a similar problem that I did, where you didn't really have an inhibitor issue, but you also had a high metabolization issue. So you had a lot of bleeds growing up, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I had a lot of trouble with breakthrough bleeds, even on prophylaxis. I've been on dozens factors trying to figure out which one will work, which one would cover me the best. But like you said, I mean, I had problems with my half life dropping in the middle of my next dose. So
Mhm.
we had a lot of issues with breakthrough bleeds. Then we had a lot of issues with vein access because I was getting stuck so much. So we went through a lot growing up. It was a struggle for sure, but I mean, Prophy was one of those things that I needed. It helped me not get to where I was worse than what I was.
Yeah. Has it been difficult for you to stay on track? Have you found times where life just kind of provided interruptions and it was difficult to keep doing it sometimes?
Yes, sir, for sure. I mean, with work, with life in general, I mean, it's a struggle for sure. Trying to make sure you do your doses on time, find time during the day to do your doses either in the morning or when you get off. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm a perfect person. I've missed doses before. I still sometimes I miss a dose, and it's hard. But it's always try. I'm always trying to get back on track and make sure I do that on time because if I don't, I can't do my job and provide for this community if I don't stay on track with my factor
Yeah,
and
so
try to
true.
stand my.
So true. And I know that you've had a lot of support from your family and also the community too. Has that played a significant role in keeping you on track?
Yes, sir, for sure. I mean, my mom's my hero. I always give my mom
Hmm.
my flowers. She even now I'm a grown person. She'll still text me and make sure I'm doing what I need to do with my hemophilia. I love her to death. I mean, she will always be that to me. I mean, mom. I mean, she's been there my whole life. She's been down some dark roads with me with my hemophilia. So I wouldn't expect nothing less from her and from the community. I mean, I always, even now with my position, I still go to community members and ask them, and try to get help and try to get advice on how what medications they're taking and how it's helping them and trying to get different advice on different things and see what I could do better for myself. I mean, it's always good to have that community to talk to get some information and see how they're doing things and see if it will help me, or they come to me and ask me how I'm doing things and I give them advice and what I'm doing and see if it will help them. So I
That's
mean,
so great.
like you said before, I mean, community is so important. I mean, for me, like the events, the new families coming in. I mean, it's good to have that support, those resources, that information for new families. But
Hmm.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And like I said, I mean, to have the and have my amazing mom. I mean, I got all the support I need. I got all the support I
So
need. So
true. Your mom is a rock star. We got to spend some time on the hill recently together, and absolutely know why you love her so much. But she did a good job of really helping to empower you to also become independent with taking over ordering your medication and so on, kind of early on, right? Even as a teenager, you were part of that role early on, and I know you shared before that that was kind of a help to you as you became more independent, right?
Yes, sir. My mom was always wanting us to be more responsible when it comes to that. I want us to be comfortable explaining to what we have to doctors if she's not with us. Be comfortable doing our factor by ourselves, doing self infusions. Me and my brother, we didn't want to be with our mom 100% of the time, so we had to learn how to self infuse, how to talk about our disorder to different people that she wasn't there to talk to them. So, for us, we wanted to play a basketball. So she said, you got to learn to talk to people, learn how to explain your disorder, learn how to self infuse, and I got to make sure you're comfortable before I let you go to another city without me there. So that was just a goal for us to make sure we could do it ourselves, and it made her more comfortable to let us go to those certain things. I had a situation my first AE meeting, my first game, I sprained my ankle, and I had to do factor, and my mom wasn't there, so she knew that I gave her a call like, "Hey, mom, I sprained my ankle." She was like, "Okay, do your factor," and she was comfortable enough to tell me to do my factor and know that I'm comfortable drawing it up, sticking myself, and all that stuff. So it helped her a lot to let us go, and it helped me a lot growing up to when I got to a point to leave the house that I was already to the point where I'm really comfortable doing my own factor, really comfortable about talking about my bleeding disorder with different people and trying to get that understanding when I'm in those situations.
That's so good. That's so good. Shout out to all the moms out there. I think I saw your mom on the call earlier today. I don't know if she's on here with us, but your
In
mom
my
is awesome. She's checking it out. But I want to invite another one of our panelists to join us today, Shannon Phelps. Shannon, it is great to see you this morning.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. I didn't want to make this like an all guys thing, so we needed some
Damn,
balance
you
in
good
the
girl.
force here. So I really appreciate you being a part of this. But also, this can't be just a Louisiana talk. I mean, this has got to be. We have to have diversity of, location too. So you're calling in, I think, from Indiana. Is that right?
Yes, I'm in Indiana, just
That's
west of the
awesome.
city. And I have type 3 von Willebrand's disease. And yeah.
Wow. And when were you first diagnosed, and then also put on treatment for preventative treatment?
So I was actually fortunate. I was diagnosed at 6 months old. Fortunately, there wasn't a traumatic issue going on. I was just covered in bruises, and my mom didn't understand what was going on.
Wow.
Same with Ben, a CPS case started. But fortunately, we had a nurse in there that knew what she was doing, had heard about it before, and she sent us over to the treatment center in Virginia. And we were able to get diagnosed at that point in time and put on as needed treatment at 6 months old.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. And learning to go from especially as a female with a bleeding disorder, even though von Willebrand's is 50-50, there's still this stigma that is like, well, you don't really need that. Did you ever hear that kind of thing like growing up with other doctors
Um,
and nurses like you don't really need that. That's not
I did
really.
have one doctor that it was honestly in my adulthood. I think I was 23, going to my first hematologist for the first time, like outside of the pediatric. He was a hematology oncology doctor, not an HTC, but I walked in and he was like, "You don't have type 3. You're going to have to prove that to me." And mind you, I thought 23, I'm an adult. I can handle this myself. I walked out of there crying, calling my mom, like, "Hey, he lied. He said I didn't have, type 3 and he doesn't believe me and this, that, and the other." Fortunately, my results speak for themselves and very quickly he, changed his mind on that. But yeah, I did have.
Did it come with an apology, or was it just that he
It
changed
did.
his mind?
It
Oh,
that
good.
doctor, there was a whole situation with him because I had to have surgery on my ankle too.
Oh
And it
my
wasn't until
gosh.
like 2 weeks before surgery that he admitted he had no idea what he was doing with me and passed my case on to another patient or to another doctor. But yeah.
Bless your heart. And the surgery was really because of joint damage, right? That you'd
It
had bloods
was,
in your
yeah.
joint.
So
Yeah.
I've had two. My first surgery was when I was a sophomore in high school.
Mm,
They did the synovectomy, just the basic synovectomy, and that's when they put me on prophy treatment was when I was a sophomore in high school. My
mm.
second surgery was when I was 26, 25, 26, and that one they did the synovectomy as well. And they put, I don't know if you know what an external fixator is, but it's basically when you shatter your bones they take that and put it on your leg to put your bones back together. But they did that to space my joint out to 5 millimeters. It was all completely trial and error to see if it would help or not. But that was left like that for 3 months. And the pain was amazing. There was no pain with the cage on, but once they took the cage off, the pain was back. But yeah.
Mm. Wow, so you've been through a lot, not just with just treatment itself, but also having joint damage and having to correct that. How have you stayed inspired by staying on treatment and also just being empowered as an advocate yourself?
So I think there's two things to go for that. Staying on treatment is, one, you need to, and two, if I don't, my body's gonna hurt. So it's more of a mental, if you don't do it, you're gonna be hurting later, or if I go ahead and just do it now, I'm not gonna suffer later kind of situation. No one's perfect. I do still miss doses on occasion. But I try to make sure I stay on top of them as much as possible. And, the reward is way more beneficial than not doing it in my opinion. But yeah.
I don't know what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like girls learn that way faster than us guys do. Like we are so thick-headed. I don't know, Ben, help me out here. Is it like it's like a glutton for punishment? Like miss a dose and have a few bleeds, and I'm like, oh wait, if I just did this ahead of time, But girls seem to pick that up a lot faster than we do.
We try
I
to.
didn't
No.
think the later on. I didn't think on the later on.
It's like glutton for punishment over here, but it's amazing. Well, I want to invite one of our other panelists on to join us now, Stephen Lawden. Stephen, it is great to see you on the call today. And I'm trying to see if I can find you to put you on the screen so everybody can see you, but for some reason I can't find you. Let me see
Yeah.
here. Here we go. There you are. I
Yep.
found you. Hey, Stephen, great to see you today. Thanks for
Morning,
joining
everybody.
us. Well, you did a great job on your prevent podcast interview as well. And one of the things I find so unique about your story is that you weren't diagnosed with von Willebrand's disease until much later in life, but you really suffered throughout so much of your life, had many joint problems, and also even joint surgeries, and continued to kind of be told that you didn't have a problem, right?
Yeah. It's pretty phenomenal, actually. Just thinking back throughout my life and where things were, there was never really a reason for it. They were just like, oh, well, it is what it is type mentality. And finding out last year that I had von Willebrand's type 1 severe was an eye opener, but also kind of a relief that okay, finally an answer. Um, there's a lot involved with getting that answer. But
Yeah.
it was, similar to a story I think somebody shared yesterday in the comments, where I found out because my daughter, who is now 16, was 14 at the time, ended up getting diagnosed with von Willebrand's. Um, and because my wife is, she knew that was hereditary, and she's actually an infusion nurse. I'm blessed with that. Me and needles don't get along, so I'm blessed to have her. But anyway, yeah, so when and got tested, got checked for it, and sure enough, I had it. So
Wow. And once you discovered it too, they didn't want to put you on preventative treatment right away either, right? I mean, you were kind of like in limbo even without immediately. Is that right?
yeah. So I actually the whole thing that spearheaded this was I was going to be having my knee replaced. And mind you, I was 43 at the time. I You mentioned other surgeries I've had on my joint. I've had prior to my knee replaced, I had 6 surgeries on that knee. One which was back in 2016, maybe 14. Can't recall which year exactly. Had too many different surgeries. I think it was 14. But that surgery was to buy me some time to not get my knee replaced right then and there because it needed it. So they did a procedure, and it took a long time to recover from that. Fast forward to last year, the hematologist slash oncologist had a plan that involved giving me some medicine before surgery, and that was it. Went home that day and continued to have severe pain, and it wasn't really addressed
Mm.
until a week later when I went to the ER, had my all my levels checked for which I find funny, but checked for a clot. Not gonna happen. No clot,
Irony.
no clot to be had because I was bleeding out internally in my leg.
Mm.
and lost half the volume of the blood in my body and my leg in a matter of a week. And yeah, so
And is that the same time where you ended up having to you like passed out in the doctor's office and in the yeah, tell that story. That
yep,
was
yep.
really crazy.
So so the next day, my wife brings me to the hematologist, and we're discussing with the assistant there because the doctor wasn't there at the time. He was out, so I was talking to the assistant. Actually, I wasn't doing much talking. I literally might have gotten like one or two words out, and I passed out. I passed out right then and there in
Mm.
front of him, and I wake up and being told I'd get a blood transfusion, giving me more medicine to address the bleeding that was occurring. Um, and then from there, I had to have another surgery a week later to get all the clotted blood at that point because all the medicine they gave me did stop the bleeding initially, the major bleed that was happening. And I had to have my knee completely worked on again to clean it all out. And was in the hospital at that time for 5 days, was given factor throughout the time, and then was told, okay, you're good to go. And went about my merry way and continued to try to do physical therapy for the next 2 months. And I couldn't. It just, the pain was, I mean, I did. I don't want to say I couldn't. I just couldn't make the progress, is what I meant to say.
Mm.
Because I kept working hard, kept trying to bend it, and to a fault, actually, come, in hindsight, I'm sitting there bending it as hard as I can and just causing more inflammation, more micro bleeds occurring, and it ended up locking my leg up and causing arthrofibrosis to the point where I couldn't even bend my leg past 70 degrees or so, and I had to have a third surgery in November, um, for them to get all that out. But by that point, I had got in touch with the HTC and in Metairie at Tulane, and got a wonderful team of doctors that knew exactly what they were doing and knew exactly what I was dealing with and knew how to treat me, and got me on Prophy at that point. And it's a world changer. And now I am
Wow.
able to bend my leg, was able to get back to work, which that wasn't. All the doctors are like, we don't know. We Good luck. Maybe get on disability. Um, and actually, backtrack real quick. Sorry. So the first doctor did tell me, did respond to a question like, "Do you ever think that we could need to be on medicine, going forward?" And the response was like, "Oh no, you won't need that." So no Prophy was suggested for my life going forward, but now I get infusions once or twice a week, based on activity level and whatnot. So
Wow. That's a remarkable story, and I'm so sorry that you've had to go through so much. It's just, I can't even imagine the mental gymnastics that you go through with having had so many years of not getting treatment, almost feeling. Have you wrestled with anger and just almost resentment in a way where I know you're such a positive person, but just curious, has that been a mentally challenging thing to go, man, if they'd have just told me this from the beginning, or if I would have just found out about this earlier, I could have avoided some of this.
so
Is it
I'm not
hard
going to
for
sit
you?
here and lie and say that, oh no, everything's been roses. My psyche's perfect. No, absolutely no. It's been a struggle. My
Hmm.
faith has brought me through it though. I've had a lot of strength in that, and in my wife, is my rock here on earth. And somebody, Ben, you said, give your mom all your flowers. I give her all my flowers, my wife, because I mean, without her, I might not even be alive, to be honest with you, let alone being able to be here talking with y'all. So she's the real reason why I even know about this community. So thank you, Amy. I think you're listening in on the other end, um,
Yes, thank you, Amy.
but yeah, the frustration and anger was definitely a part of the process.
Hmm.
But I guess I don't know. I couldn't afford to be in that place because I had to focus so much on recovery. Once everything just kind
Right.
of hit me right in the face, and everything was just focused on recovery. But since then, yeah, I've had moments of like, man, just only, right, just only I could have had
Hmm.
this information before. So now every chance I get, anybody I talk to, I bring it up. Like not in my case, but like if I hear somebody say something about bleed, like some kind of bleeding, disorder, or not a disorder, something to do with that, I'm like, hey, have you been checked for a bleeding disorder? Like my radar's up. So now I'm seeking to help as many people as I can that
Yes.
I come across, because I don't want them to go through what I went through, or with some of you guys have gone through. Your stories have been fantastically, heartbreaking. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, and I'm so thankful for you having the courage to share it, and also to be able to even get involved to help others. We need more and more people like you to be able to share that journey, because I think it is devastating. Not to dive too deeply into my story, but I actually had, you talking about physical therapy. When I was 14, I had a scenario where back then I was going to an HTC, but we weren't doing x-rays regularly. We had a physical therapist that would come in. This was in another state. But we would have a physical therapist that would come in, but they really just were looking at range of motion. They were measuring for range of motion. They weren't really looking at x-rays and specifics of doing some of the testing. And so I would go in, and every year my elbow was one of my biggest target joints. My ankle was my right ankle was my first target joint. My right elbow was my second target joint. Keep in mind at this time, everyone, this is early 90s, everybody is on, on demand treatment, right? So this is just if you have a bleed, that's where you get infusion. And at this time, my elbow just continued to lose motion and draw it more and more, to the point where it's about 90 degrees was the most flexion I could get. And but it was kind of soft and squishy. It wasn't like a hard, stop. And so the treatment center decided at the time to recommend going into physical therapy. And I went through this physical therapy, and it was very intense. And I would just literally just be in tears at, 13, 14 years old, every single therapy. It was just so painful. And they would say, if you don't do this, it's not going to get better. And they would just work it out, work it out, work it out. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why they didn't do x-rays. They just never did x-rays. And so they just kept doing this, kept stretching it out, trying to bend it, trying to move it. And what they were doing was, they were like you mentioned, the fibrosis. They were going through and breaking up the synovial membrane over and over and over again, causing more and more bleeds. And every single time I would go through like 3 or 4 days where it would just be so painful. And of course, back then we weren't using pain medication. There was, I mean, it was like, here's a Tylenol, hope it works out for you. And it was brutal. And I went through that for 3 or 4 years of just devastating pain. Fast forward a little bit, we actually ended up relocating to Louisiana, which we actually moved here because my dad ran out of insurance, and it was the only way to be able to get insurance is to move to another state. So we moved, and didn't know a soul here. Got reintroduced, and back then all of the records were on paper. There wasn't like a my chart or something. It was like everything was on paper, and my file was about like a mile deep, and it was in the basement of Cook Children's Hospital and the Fort Worth Hospital. And it took somebody like a work order for 6 months to go find it and then bring it up to the thing, and then FedEx it over to New Orleans. And so in the process of that, they were like, look, this is going to take too long. Let's just do a whole fresh workup on you since you're a new patient here at this new Tulane Treatment Center. They did a fresh workup, and then lo and behold, they do x-rays. Well, come to find out, my elbow is so deteriorated that I only have about 1/8 of an inch of bone left in my elbow joint. And the doctor said, he says, you don't even have a joint here. You actually have a bone spur, two bone spurs that are kind of holding this thing together. And that was when I actually was scheduled for my first surgery for an open synovectomy. And very, very, very painful. But going through that, I can recall and remember as going through that whole process was like, oh my gosh, if they would have just done a little bit more research, they would have known to like give me more factor, or to be able to infuse, or to do anything else, but maybe not even physical therapy. Like maybe there's some other solution. And I can remember for a long time through those years, I just had so much bitterness and really anger, that I had to deal with. And it was really hard. But like you, it's like you just end up just going through the next thing and the next thing. But even with that knowledge, sometimes it's just hard to get. I mean, like I remember when prophylaxis came around, and it was like, hey, you should get on this preventative treatment regimen. It was still difficult for me to get that through my thick head, and I had trouble in other joints as a result of that. But so I guess that leads me to my next question, really, for the group here is, when you think about the damage of the joints that you've had, I guess, do you think that if you had been on prophylaxis treatment regimen, or had been maybe adherent to a prophylaxis treatment regimen more consistently prior to these problems, do you think it could have prevented or at least minimized these issues? And Shannon, I see you shaking your head, so I'll let you take that one first.
Yeah, I feel like being on Prophy from an early age is definitely what is going to help younger kids fix their joints and keep their joints lasting longer because it only takes one joint bleed to start the process. So
Yeah.
I think if I was on Prophy when I was a kid, I would not be in the same position that I was in today. So.
Yeah. I believe that. Ben, you've been through quite a bit of joint damage as well. I mean, do you think that if you could have figured out maybe the metabolizing issue a little earlier, if that would have been, do you think that could have helped prevent?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've always had issues with that, and I mean, I just had bleeds in joints, especially my left elbow. My left elbow was my target joint. I had trouble with that one. It was like every week it would have inflammation, it would be swelling, something will be going on with it, and I mean, just prophylaxis. Some of the factor just didn't cover me enough to where I didn't get those breakthrough bleeds. It wasn't because I wasn't doing factor; it was just because that it wasn't covering me as long to my
Working.
next dose.
Right.
So I think it was just one of those things. Not like my hematologist didn't do her best to try to get me on treatment. It was just
Sure.
trying to get on that right one was the hard one. Just trying to find. And you can't change them like changing clothes. You have to wait and see if they work. Then you got to go through that pain, and it's hard to do that gamble on a factor. And it's hard for me to do it now because I'm so scared I'm gonna be worse than what I am right now. So it's
Yeah.
definitely is that trauma definitely keeps me from making that jump now as an older person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And Stephen, I know you've said that too. It's just that, if you could have been on it early on, it could have prevented that joint damage. But do you feel like that even now, like, I know you said sometimes you're still kind of treating about twice a week, but sometimes you're kind of like, oh, maybe I'll do it tomorrow morning, or life gets in the way. Do you feel like does that come back? I mean, it's so fresh to you right now that you still want to stay disciplined to stay on track so you can prevent further damage in the future?
Yeah, with as much as we've learned as fast as we've been forced to learn,
Hmm.
yeah, we try to stay on top of it as much as possible, try to be as preventative as possible. If for whatever reason there's a day that I didn't plan on being as active, and I end up active, then it is a reactive scenario. But even when I do a reactive infusion, by the next morning, I feel a great difference. The type of pain subsides. The pain is still there because the joint it's just painful. The tip muscle
Beat up.
tissue and
Yeah.
everything around it it hurts. But
Hmm.
from the damage of the bleeding that with the arthrofibrosis and everything, but the pain, the type of pain from the microbleeds, which I now know are microbleeds because that type of pain I could never describe what it was because it wasn't
Hmm.
anything normal because I have chronic pain throughout my body, my shoulders, my wrists, both my knees, my back, my neck. But that type of pain is different, and I could never
Hmm.
describe it. But once we came to realize that it was from microbleeds, and now that I have Prophy, it's a game changer for me. It still hurts, but it's a manageable hurt. Like I go from a 8-9 to a 6-7. Right? I know that's not a
Yeah.
big jump, but for me, that's all I need. I need something to help a
Yeah.
little bit, just enough to where it can take me down, and it's a world of difference because I know what it feels like when I'm not on it.
Mm. That's so good and so important. Again, I think about, there are people that are suffering with this kind of pain, 10, 11 level pain with bleeds every day in this world. The World Federation estimates that, I think it's somewhere less than 30% of the world population gets treatment, period, much less on prophylaxis treatment. So it's a very small percentage of folks that are getting regular treatment. And I think the fact that we even have any kind of access to this treatment is something to be celebrated and utilized if we can. I've felt guilt over that too. It's kind of like survivor's guilt where you're like, gosh, like, should I even take this? Because, there's starving children in Africa, and I heard a comedian say one time, just because there's, if you have food on your plate in America, there's not somebody out there that's like eating and going, oh, I feel full now on the other side of the world. It's like, but there is a sense of like, we have to be able to continue to show proof that this is actually working for us. So actually it would trickle down and help other countries over the long term because we're also still proving that prophylaxis is extremely important. And one of the things that I bring up sometimes to policymakers is that what insurance companies don't want is they don't want everybody to end up in the hospital, because that's where the gross majority of the expenditure in healthcare is. It's actually 52% of all healthcare expenditures are spent on hospitalization. And I think the reality is that, yes, high cost medications are difficult to pay for in some occasions, especially for diseases like these. But the challenge is that the alternative is so much more expensive that treating at home on a consistent, regular basis is actually far less expensive than it is to treat one of us in the emergency room or in the hospital. And so that's the message that we're also communicating when we stick to our adherence and we do get prophylaxis. It's such a big battle to get there, but once you get there, you got to continue to prove proof of concept, and that helps all of us who are winning and sticking to our treatment plan on that and doing well. We're actually proving something to formularies to say, hey, look at this, we didn't have hospitalization for the last 5 years. That's a win. And if we do that here, then we can actually show that the advancements for the rest of the community. So believe it or not, those moments when you're taking your doses are not just for you, it's for the whole community. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind. Each one of you have mentioned about how your support system was played such a vital role in helping keep you on track and keeping you mentally in a space to keep you inspired. Stephen, I identify with you right there about your spouse being the one to hold you on course. Many of you know Carla, my wife, who's on here today. She has been my rock and support to be able to keep me through a lot of times that I didn't want to keep going, and so I can identify with that. But all of us also have had some involvement in the community, and I know, Shannon, for you also work in the community, but you also are a part of the community. You're invested in a lot of events around the country. So let's talk a little bit about what the role of going to events like this one today. Obviously, we're preaching to the choir because there's almost 100 people here on the call today listening to this and participating in this call. But think about this with, the events and the support that you get from local chapters and from, national events and things like that. How has that education and that connection to other relationships with people who are fellow bleeders, if you will, helped you along your journey?
I feel like it has helped me in education because I'm going to a lot of events and so I'm in sessions up to date with the what's going on. But then with the community, you find your people. And so I have
Mm,
a group of, best friends around the country that, you hang out with and you get to see and catch up with every so often. And I don't know, the community has always been the best thing for me. I think having a bleeding disorder is, down here compared to the community. So I think it's pretty awesome.
that's awesome. Ben, I know you're deeply invested with community because it's what you do every day, which I love. How has community played a role in your support, even beyond your immediate family?
It's played a major role. I mean, my family, we had a difficult time with getting on insurance when I was a baby. My mom was told she could never get married. Uh,
Mm.
my mom couldn't get a better job. She had 5 kids. And we lived 4.5 hours from our HEC. So we didn't have no one that could treat us back home. So my mom was working day and night, and my dad was hurt. He was getting workers' comp, so we needed money. I mean, she couldn't take off for appointments. She couldn't take off for little stuff with our hemophilia. So I mean, the community played a huge role in helping my family get to our appointments. I mean, just get treatment, the treatment that we deserved. I mean, we didn't have no doctors in our areas that could treat us, so we had to travel 4.5 hours. Mom had to take off work. We had to stay with people to try to make our appointments. So I mean, I'm always so thankful for that because I mean, without that, I probably wouldn't be here and be as healthy I am right now without that support from them. And for me, it's just the community. I mean, blood brothers, blood sisters. I mean, everyone always always give us advice. I mean, for me as a young kid, I needed that advice to grow up. I needed that advice to how to manage mentally, how to manage my mental health, and how to cope with the certain things, and how to get through certain things in life that I probably wouldn't got through without them. So I mean, for that, I mean, I'm always thankful. I mean, I don't know what I would do without that kind of support. So I think the community, right? I mean, it just changed my life, man. I mean, explain how much gratitude I have to this community.
So amazing. So true. And I always say, I know y'all have heard me say it to exhaustion, but it's just so true is that the best thing about being diagnosed with a bleeding disorder is the community that comes along with it. And it is really like one big giant family. I say, especially once you've been deeply entrenched in the community, it's kind of like the biggest small town you've ever been to. It's geographically spread out, but it's just a small town. Everybody knows the mom and them, and kind of knows where you came from. And for better or worse, there's a lot of good that can come from it too. But it's so important just to have those friends, like you said, Shannon, that you can connect with and learn from and grow, and sometimes a shoulder to cry on and just complain to, and those things are so important. I mean, it just helps you through the difficult days. And Stephen, I know you've kind of been thrown in the deep end here in just these last little bit, but I mean, just tell me, what are your first impressions about being exposed to the community now? How is that helping you in your journey today?
So, not having known about any of this uh, prior to not even a year ago. I mean, we're talking, it hasn't even been a year since I had my knee replaced, let alone since was thrown into the fire. Um, Excuse me, I had an echo in the background. I had to close the door. But this community and the bleeding center, the bleeding community itself, my wife and I have learned so much from the community. And I really believe that that is what's honestly helped keep you asked about my mental state earlier, anger and stuff. I really believe that being a part of the community and getting to know all of you guys, and we had a local gathering. Ben, I think we met you there at the picnic in Baton Rouge just a few weeks ago, crawfish bowl rather. It's not picnic, it's crawfish bowl with some picnic food. But anyway, getting to meet people there and hear their stories. It's one thing to know that you're not alone, but it's another to be able to sympathize and empathize and be there with other people and listen to their story. Not necessarily to make me feel better, but it helps me, I don't know, helps me process my emotions better when I'm talking with somebody else, giving them an opportunity to vent, right, or to tell me their story, to let them know, hey, look, I'll be praying for you. You're not alone, or I learned stuff from them
Mhm.
that they say. And just traveling around, like we went to a conference for Von Willebrands in Phoenix back in April, I believe, maybe March, I don't know. Time just kind of connects. I can't really despair, but yeah, the community itself has really provided a a huge bonus and need that I didn't even know we needed. And now
Mm.
that we are part of it, I can't imagine not being a part of it and not continuing to be a part of it. So
It's so good. So good, Stephen. Well, we're glad to have you, and I'm so sorry that you've had to go through so much, but so glad that you're here now, and we look forward to being able to kind of just be an extended family to you through this journey as well. I want to give one last question to our panelists before we go on, but I'd like to give you guys a moment to share any tips or advice that you think that you'd like to leave our audience with today on how to best stay on track for their Prophy regimen and setting those goals. And we may have time for just a couple of questions. If you have a question for one of our panelists, feel free to put that in the chat, and Susie will be keeping an eye on that and help us facilitate that after our last question here. But Ben, I'll start with you. Just is there any advice or tips that you would like to recommend to anybody just on how they can stay on track?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always have something that reminds me on my phone, either a calendar app or something like that. So for that, I mean, you always have to set those reminders. I mean, to get those reminders during the day is really a plus when you're having so much going on. You got so much on your mind that you're not even thinking about doing your dose of factor that day. So having those reminders and having that little thing that gets you to like, oh, hey, I got to do factor today. And for me, it's just keep that self motivation. I mean, if you need help with self motivation, I mean, talk to someone. You get mentally, I mean, drained from it. I mean, you're doing factor all the time. You're having bleeds. You're frustrated. Mental health is so important. I mean, if you want to reach out to someone in the community, reach out to them and get help. Because I mean, I've been in those points in my life where I needed that help. I needed to reach out and just express that frustration. And it definitely helped me a lot to stay on track and get those emotions out and still be able to do my daily things. And like I said, just getting those notifications will help you stay on track for sure, especially during a busy day.
So true. So true. Shannon, any tips and tricks you recommend for staying consistent?
I feel like Ben was pretty spot on with it, but I would like to add to that with doing morning alarms and afternoon alarms because sometimes you have it set for one time, but you miss it and don't really think about it again twice. Also using micro health to utilize, you can visually see your doses that you're taking, stuff like that. And then, with your friends, hanging out, making sure you're all doing it, keeping up tabs on each other, making sure everyone is staying consistent helps out.
Yeah, was it you, Shannon, that told me that you have like a FaceTime or something you do with your friends and you're all infused together or something?
Every
That's
once in a while, it's
awesome.
not consistent, but we do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right, Ben, I'm calling you next week. We're gonna hook it up. Steven, we're gonna
Hey,
FaceTime.
FaceTime, man. We do it together, man. We're a team.
That's awesome. It's kind of a girl thing. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. All right, cool. Well, Stephen, any advice, man? I sometimes I feel like being new to this actually gives you a fresh perspective that some of us been, entrenched in this for a long time don't have. But man, what are the treasures that you think that would be good for people to keep on their forefront of their mind to stay consistent with their treatment plan?
Yeah, so being fresh to this is definitely a, a plus in some way and a negative, obviously, because that means I didn't have protection my whole life. And so now I'm suffering where I might not have even needed to suffer. But where I am now, um, my advice would be a couple different points to make would be as far as staying on getting treatment, getting my infusion. I, I don't need an alarm. I got my wife for that. But it's kind of like a meal plan, right? So at the beginning of the week, if you're doing things good and you're trying to stay on budget or whatever the case is, you make a plan for the week of what you're going to eat, right? Well, it's kind of the same thing for me is I'll plan out my week and be like, okay, I'm going to have a really busy day this day. So I want to make sure I get it the night before or the morning of, preferably the morning of if I have time, but sometimes I got to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we get it the night before. So making a plan in the beginning of the week to know exactly, because I'm not on a certain schedule with my Prophy. Mine is a almost a preventative for sure, but an activity based. Because if I'm just chilling around the house and not really doing much, I should be okay as long as I keep ice on my knee and my other joints. So that's key for me is one, just kind of playing out my week to see what's ahead. And then if something happens where in the middle of the week I have an unplanned busy day, I don't wait to the next day. Like I'm not like, oh, let me see if I can handle this on my own. For the most part, though I'd be remiss to say that hasn't happened, because I've been a little stubborn. I don't know what it is. You mentioned sometimes we just don't get it. Even though I know it helps, I'm just like, oh, let me just see. And then the next morning, I'm like, okay, let's do this. Um, but the other part would be if what you're on isn't working for you, or if your doctor isn't on point with you, if you don't feel like you're being heard, don't think that you're stuck. Don't just take the doctor's word for it. We did, and we paid the price. And even if you don't even know because you don't know what you don't know, but it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion. Just like anything you're dealing with in life, you get a second opinion. I had to have a cervical fusion done. I had 4 doctors' opinions before I went and pulled that trigger. I did not take that same approach with Divine Willibrands with the bleeding disorder because I thought they knew what they were talking about. You don't know what you don't know. So
Right.
just don't take it sitting down. If something doesn't feel right or you don't feel like you're being heard, change. Try to reach out, figure something out, reach out to the community, see what they think. So yeah, that's just my parting advice there.
That's so good. That's so good. Susie, are there any comments? I know there's a lot of comments going through, and big props to Amy. Stephen, your Amy is blowing up the chat with advice. So thanks, Amy, for all you're doing there. We're gonna have to get y'all both on one time to do a couples, panel. But man, this is so great. But Susie, any comments you see that would be
Well,
addressed to our panelists?
there've been some amazing, comments and just thank yous and things like that. But there was one question. I do believe this is for Stephen. Did your daughter present as a severe also? Somebody was asking about your daughter.
No, she didn't present as severe. Actually, and this is the second thing I want to mention. So I'm glad you asked that question. Her first round of tests were not undecided. It was uncertain, but it was because her she was so iron deficient that it skewed her von Willebrand's numbers. And so at the first round of tests, the doctor wasn't comfortable even labeling her as a von Willebrand's patient. But thankfully, he was determined based on her symptoms to run them again. And when he did, she was clear cut. She definitely had von Willebrand type 1. I want to say mild. So yeah, she was mild. But when I got mine ran, there was no disparity. It was clear cut, von Willebrand's, and then after doing the extensive blood work to find out that I was severe. But that wasn't a instant response. So that's why I said, like, if you're not sure, or if you feel like that your box that they put you in isn't appropriate, have them test again. Have them run the test again. And because there's certain circumstances that can raise your von Willebrand's factor falsely, or just temporarily, to where it'd be a false read. So.
And do everything you can to get to a specialist that really understands bleeding disorders. So just, not all hematologists understand everything about bleeding disorders. It's important. That's why HTCs are so important, is to make certain that you get to someone who really understands a bleeding disorder, because that can really, also skew the advice and the results. So good point.
This didn't happen quickly. This took some time throughout the year and just constant pestering of my wife to the doctors to make this happen. So this happened because of her persistence. So, yeah,
we're gonna give Amy an award before this is over. I feel it
look, she's got a place, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I do see another question. I'm not sure who to direct it to. What would you tell someone that is apprehensive on starting a Prophy regimen on their toddler?
I think Shannon should take that one.
6
months old. That's technically a toddler that you were getting your treatment. So how did you feel at 6 months old? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I couldn't tell you. I would, but I do feel like there is a certain age where the bleeds start getting more profound and more. You're having to do more to prevent them. I think that is probably the perfect time to maybe start looking into it and seeing what else might be options for you. I think it depends person to person, I would say. But I mean, if you're severe, I feel like Prophy is going to be the best bet for you in that regard. But
yeah, I think
I would
me,
say that. Yeah, go ahead, Ben. No, go
yeah,
ahead.
I think for when I was a baby, like I said, I started experiencing hematomas from just a walker, from hitting the wall and hitting my stomach. So I think for me, I needed the prophylaxis. It gave my mom that reassurance that I was covered if I bumped my head or if I fell. Or as a toddler, you're gonna learn how to walk. You're gonna do certain things. You're gonna crawl out the crib. I mean, the babies don't do certain things, and it gives you that little extra reassurance that, I mean, he or she is protected, and that they won't have those little bumps and bruises, and you won't have to worry as much. But like I said, I mean, always follow up with your doctor to see what's the best opinion. And like he said, I mean, if you don't like that opinion, go to different hematologists and get their opinion. But it's very, I mean, it's one of those things. It's different for everyone. Not everyone needs it, but if you feel like your child needs it, definitely go to your hematologist and maybe get a second opinion if you need to.
So good.
That is the only questions that I see, Jonathan, but it's the chat has been very, very busy.
Yes.
And a big shout out to Amy. I will say that. because she's very knowledgeable. She's done her homework. So,
So good.
but lots of thank yous, lots of, way to go. Thank you for paving the road, things like that. So thank you guys so much. It's been a wonderful way to start our second day, I have to say.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much to Ben, Shannon, and Stephen for helping us with this discussion panel. I really think your feedback and your input has been so valuable. And if anyone listening to this would like to reach out to one of our panelists to learn more about their specifics of their story, please feel free to let us know and we'll help connect you. But thank you all so much for joining us for this session, because I think it was really valuable to have your input. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much. It was so
Yep.
exciting to be able to come on.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for inviting us.
Awesome. We'll see you soon. And I want to give a shameless plug also. I know we had with both Stephen and Shannon with von Willebrand's disease represented here. I did want to mention to you that we will be having a whole conference, a 2-day event that will be an online event just like this one, where we will be focusing on von Willebrand's disease and the unique attributes of things that you need to, tools that you need to have for your treatment plan, and also latest treatment that's coming around. So that's going to be an exciting time, July 15th and 16th. You don't want to miss that. You'll see registration coming online for that very soon. So keep an eye out for those emails as well. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Susie. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you the rest of the day. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in the chat. We'll see you soon.